Hello. So today I want to talk about that whole situation with Shein and the influencers coming to the innovation center, is what they call it now, of Shein, and kind of making content about their practices. Honestly, I want to have a nuanced conversation. I know that the internet is not the place for it, but I still think that it would be beneficial for a lot of people, so I'm going to do it regardless. And I also want to talk about certifications and the way that we can assess whether a company is doing something ethically or not, and how reliable that all really is. And also just the whole influencer culture and how similar it all is to our regular jobs, just because our whole system is fucked. I'm sure you probably heard about the whole situation. If you haven't, let me remind you of what happened. This whole scandal happened, right? An expose released at the end of last year, I believe. I'm not entirely sure when it was, but it was, more or less recent, when a bunch of journalists have reported on Shein and Shein's practices, how truly horrific the way that they're going about everything is, how they are breaking a bunch of laws. And I don't mean international laws, I mean local laws as well. Now we had a bunch of influencers who were flown out to this new innovation center that's kind of like supposed to it's supposed to represent what their sweatshops look like, but well, it's just not the truth, obviously, which seems like such a strange attempt at recovering your image. But they sent a bunch of influencers to go and check out their facility. The facility looked like a fucking Equinox, very futuristic in some ways. There's a lot of automated stuff going on, like, hangars just driving around by themselves, whatever. When it comes to a lot of brands, I'm gonna be completely honest with you. In my opinion, I view most, if not all, businesses as a scam based on my personal standards, However, my personal standards do not really apply in the climate that we're in, because my personal standards would kind of require the entirety of the system to be different. It would require a revolution for me to feel comfortable in it. It's interesting because she's the only one who addressed this so far when I'm filming this, and there's also a lot of this use of the word propaganda in a lot of reports about this whole situation, where people are saying, people are not happy that they're promoting propaganda and stuff like that. Okay, first of all, I think that we need to retire this word for the time being, for this video at least, because it is not the correct use of the word. I beg you to look up the meaning of words, because this is specifically information that's misleading, but also that is political in nature. Like, they are lying, and I personally hate Shein with my whole chest, not gonna lie, but propaganda is not the right word, okay? They're not a political party, they're not in politics, and even though they're probably obviously there's some kind of connections behind the scenes or whatever it is, because most of our countries right now are just a bunch of corporations wearing a hat that says country. Okay, let's be fucking real here. So I'm gonna call this lies, not propaganda. Let's move on to the next point. She's the one who's actually publicly addressing it, and it was really strange to watch those videos. There was one where she basically just goes, I am a plus size creator, I usually don't get paid as well as others. There's probably some kind of discrimination going on, but right now the industry, especially with influencers, has become so big and so many people are a part of it that there's a lot of tools online, and also tools that you can get through your management if you get a manager or something like that, or just through just conversations with your peers, which amount of money you're supposed to be offered for which type of content. When you're being lowballed because the businesses are just crooks, like all of them are. I personally, for example, I know that if someone were to go to Walmart and buy something there, they're not going to be like, well, I got scammed. But I find most of them to be crooks. But there's nothing I can do really to stand entirely in solidarity with my morals when it comes to this stuff, because completely standing with my morals would require an overhaul of the entire system, as I've said. Her name is Carbonari. The second thing that she's kind of said that I found strange was not strange but interesting. You can tell that based on what they've said to her, the people that work at Shein they're definitely really quick at figuring out the new talking points. And as I've said before, billionaires and crooks like that, they are very quick to adapt. They're kind of like cockroaches, you know? You create a new way of sussing them out, of figuring out who is who and who's doing what. The more they find ways to use the same keywords that we created to, you know, point them out, to make it easier for people who are not part of this world to figure out who to shop from, whatever. They use those keywords and they restructure their entire marketing strategy around those keywords. That's exactly what we've seen with greenwashing, obviously, you know. So for example, they realize that people are talking about how usually businesses that are more ethically operated, they usually have less waste. They usually create collections based on demand or whatever, right? Shein and many others like Juicy C, Cider, a bunch of other brands, you know, they're of the same caliber and the same type of businesses. They all took that and they started saying that we use AI to predict how much of some kind of product we're gonna sell, so we produce only that amount and we don't produce any waste, which is first and foremost complete bullshit. Second of all, they're producing and promoting overconsumption to a ridiculous degree. Our generation got duped into thinking that luxury is having a bunch of shitty products that break, but abundance of them, you know. They're all shiny for about a week. They're all pretty and colorful, and they kind of, you know, do something to our synapses in our heads, and then they just go to waste immediately, and they're just not doing the thing they're supposed to do anymore, because we get that dress that we wanted, and then that dress is just impossible to wear after you wear it a couple of times, because it just starts to look disgusting because it's made out of thin plastic, right? Regardless of all of those things, let me move on to the next point. This creator, she decided to deflect the criticism through commenting on xenophobia and racism, you know, specifically racism towards Chinese people. And I'm gonna be honest with you, people in the West are little racist assholes. Like, let's be fucking honest about it. And it's kind of like that about like everywhere, and it just kind of shifts slightly in terms of who is the one who's discriminated against, depending on where you are in the world. The reason why this argument actually works, wait for it, is because this is an argument that's been used by many people who work in manufacturing and in ethical practices, who have figured out that there's a lot of manufacturers around the world who do not follow simple principles of decency, and oftentimes you cannot tell who's doing what and who's actually creating something unethically, because it is just such a complicated web where everyone is lying. Okay, this is gonna go into also my personal experience with manufacturers in terms of like working in marketing and trying to figure out what kind of certifications everyone has, who your company is working with, so you can actually know what to tell people when it comes to production and whatever, right? What I found about this is that there's definitely a lot of bullshit out there, and the problem right now is that obviously there is bias, okay? There is bias against Chinese production, and there's multiple reasons that people are kind of using to come to these conclusions, which all make no sense, especially if you are from the West. I think that you just don't have a leg to stand on, to be honest, because let's be real here, right? The first myth that is very popular about Chinese production is that it's bad quality, and the reason why it's bad quality is not because the productions in China are of bad quality. The reason for it is because the businesses that operate in the West, a lot of different companies, they are requesting specific materials to be used. They are requesting specific numbers of units, and they're asking for a worse quality as long as they can have a bigger margin of profit. So even luxury manufacturing is going on in China. It depends on the company and what they request, right? Now, the second thing of unethical production. Unethical production definitely goes on, and it goes on everywhere, unfortunately. And that's the problem that I think we are facing right now, and that is being exploited by Shein in terms of, passing along this information of this is just xenophobia. We're actually doing everything right. It's just people are, racist towards Chinese people and whatever, which is true. I don't want to take that away because I definitely do see that bullshit every single day here. It was real bad during 2020 here, at least in Vancouver, was fucking bad. And I'm not going to be sitting here telling you it's not going on. It's not going on. You know that it's going on, right? What I do think the reason why this reason that they're kind of using the excuse or redirection that this influencer is using why it's even working is because it is a real thing, but it's just not true in specifically Shein's case, for example. So I oftentimes hear people say, "Oh, this is unethical production because because it's made in China," which is that's bullshit. That's sometimes it is like racist people saying that. Like, let's be real. I want to talk about manufacturers specifically right now, how surprised I was that it's so difficult to find manufacturers in the West that are willing to work with new designers or companies that are not ordering less than 1,000 pieces upfront. The development of the product, for example, the professionalism is lacking oftentimes in a lot of Western companies that are in any shape or form are available to contact. And the most annoying thing was that, not even annoying, but surprising thing that I kind of ran into is that when you contact a lot of companies here, like in North America, for example, a lot of them do not have basic certification that I think is base level. Oftentimes, they obviously have the ones that they have to have because of their local laws, but for some reason they think that they're exempt from all the other certifications and international communities and certification boards. And so basically there's some certifications that you can get anywhere in the world. It's an international company and they have audit experts everywhere to do audits at those facilities. First and foremost, there are some problems with those certifications, and not in the way that some businesses are complaining about it when they're saying that it's like a lot of paperwork and it doesn't fix the quality issues or whatever. I'm not talking about. There's some that are international and they're supposed to be performed by a third party. You cannot do your own audit. This is one of the things that kind of should raise a red flag when you look at Shein's practices. They always say that they outsource their production, first and foremost, right? Second of all, they say that they do audits. They did like 2,000 something in last year or something. That was their point, that they've made, which is crazy because I don't care that you went there and checked it yourself. You are the company that benefits from that manufacturer passing the audit that you're conducting. All right, that's just dumb as shit. Just saying that you did it does not do anything for me. It does not make me think that there's actually some kind of certification or proper practices in place or anything. This means absolutely nothing to me. So the next thing is audits that are done by professionals and by third parties, right? Obviously, there is a chance that it could be paid off somehow. I'm not going to be fucking telling you that it isn't possible because like it is, but not just in China. It is possible absolutely everywhere. And the most frustrating thing is when you're talking to an American manufacturer and they're like, well, we don't really need this certification that's like, with an international board or whatever. We're working in America. We have a lot of laws here that prevent this from happening or whatever. And it's like, you think I don't know about the conditions that people are working in here? I myself worked for HomeSense / Winners, okay? When I was in first year of university, I think in between first and second year, and I was working there and also in a cafe, and I was working about 60 hours a week. And obviously I wasn't working all of them at the Winners just because like I already got like a part-time job that was at a cafe, and the cafe job was a lot better. But I was working there sometimes in the basement putting clothes on racks and like putting little tags on them and whatever. And we had supervisors who were walking around screaming at us. We had to be pressing this button, calculating how many pieces we have tagged in a certain amount of time, and we always had somebody walking around hurrying us up and being like, you haven't done enough in this, like in the last 15 minutes, for example. It literally looked like a sweatshop, and it honestly was a sweatshop, and I was getting paid the minimum wage of the minimum wage, which is not a livable wage. Nowhere close. Right now, I think the minimum wage in Vancouver is about $15. Let me actually check it just so I don't speak out of my ass. Okay, so right now, as of June 1st of 2023, they just raised it. They raised it to 16.75, which is all in Canadian dollars, by the way. If you're an American and you think, oh, $16, goddamn, it's Canadian dollars, so cut it in half, about a half, and you're gonna get American dollars. Now, let's see living wage in BC. Vancouver, actually. So the living wage right now is about $25 an hour. So the minimum wage is about $10 below it. That's insane. That is a really, really big gap, you know. Back then, I think I was getting like maybe $12 max. I don't know. Absolutely horrible experience. It is like working at a sweatshop, to be honest. In any case, when I'm reaching out to manufacturers in the West and they tell me, well, we're operating in this country or in this province or in this state or whatever, of course we have everything, you know, functioning properly. And then you have a bunch of shit from, like, for example, HelloFresh come out, you know, where there's absolutely terrible labor practices in place by the company, and you're just sitting there like, holy fuck, like, seriously, guys? Every time they say that, I'm just like, who do you think came up with this fucking game? You think just because you operate within this country, I'm not going to ask for proper certification? That's fucking insane, right? When it comes to Chinese production and production in Taiwan or Hong Kong too, all three, once again, it all depends on whether they are a part of, if they have certifications, and specific ones at that, and if they are part of some kind of community or council that is internationally accepted as like a standard, you know, of practices. There are different types of councils, different types of communities, different types of whatever you might call it. There's different types of names for it that are very industry specific. So like you have one for jewelry, you have one for clothes, I don't know if you have it for every single type of production, but there are many that do have it now, which is like, you know, like usually responsible production, whatever, right? I think that a lot of people are starting to realize that it's not just country dependent, it is dependent on certifications and the type of people who run those facilities and stuff like that. So it becomes a lot more murky, right? The most ridiculous thing that I have run into was I was working for a jewelry startup, and the owner, I was like asking for their certifications and stuff, and he like sent me an audit form that someone filled in for them, so they like technically have a certification. And then when you go through that certification, you realize that they don't actually give you a pass or fail. They don't give you a certification based on whether you actually hit any requirements. Honestly, what they give you is an audit, and that audit, like, it's basically about 80 to 100 pages of information of how the facility is actually ran. So to know that if they failed it or not, at least in your personal opinion, you would have to read the entire fucking thing, right? So being an anal little bitch that I am, I did read the entire thing, and I found that they are breaking Chinese laws, not breaking international laws, not being able to get some kind of certification. They're breaking their local laws, and I don't think anyone knows about it because that company who gave them that audit, who gave them that certification, they're not really required to report them anywhere. Many people just don't really know the difference. So in any case, with all of this, it is very discouraging, it's disheartening because there's so many levels to this. There's so many different nuances and a bunch of other bullshit that makes it very, very, very difficult to find actually decent companies, decent production plants. Starting one yourself is very, very difficult. It's very expensive, and only rich fucks can do it. So that's why some rich people can actually be ethical. They just choose not to be, right? A lot of the plants also within our countries, America or Canada, it doesn't really matter, both, we do not have the facilities to make a lot of things. We have like facilities that can make, for example, simple rings or a dress that's cut in a specific way, right? But no innovation is actually available at those plants because you have very standard things that they can perform, but they don't have the machinery to perform anything more complicated, right? So with all of this in mind, that's why I thought it was so silly that that girl was saying that because they have conducted that many audits, it is actually somehow proof that they are not breaking any labor laws or that they're not like being unethical in any kind of way. Because it's like, okay, well, first of all, it was already shown that they are breaking laws because there was evidence, not rumors anymore. At the end of the year, when we got that documentary and everything, it was not just rumors, it was actual evidence. People went undercover to get that evidence, and they did get it, right? So even if you genuinely believe some company, it is a little bit crazy, which is possible, and I can't fault you for that. Like when you're working with someone and they tell you that they have this certification or that certification, and you know that it's a legit thing, and then you check it, whatever, but then something along the way you figure out they, for example, bought that certification somehow. I don't know. Anything is possible. People are fucking crazy. I'm telling you, people are assholes. And in that case, if you find out that it's, for example, somehow unethical, I can be like, okay, like, fair enough. Like, how the fuck are you supposed to know for sure, right? There's so much bullshit going on in the world that it is a little bit impossible to actually be like 100% sure about anything. In her case, it's like, girl, this has been just all shown to the public. This is not rumors or anything like that. And I'm not gonna lie, I don't care for Shein to pretend again like they have changed their ways. I want them to be done forever. I honestly don't want to see them anymore. In general, anywhere. Now, let's talk about influencing, paid trips, companies, the way that you can and cannot make money, the job market right now, and class in general. So influencing and making money as an influencer. So the way that everything is kind of set up on any platform, YouTube, TikTok, whatever, whichever platform you honestly want to take, it basically makes it so it's easy for you to make money if you are kind of like a dumb asshole, like one of the Paul brothers, or if you exploit your children and you make children content with toys or something like that, because that one pays quite a bit per 1,000 views. So the way that you can kind of determine how much your video is gonna make, it is based on CPM, which is how much your video makes per 1,000 views. And also, YouTube takes half of it. So then there's RPM, which is how much you yourself actually make. So the average is actually about $3 to $4 per 1,000 views. It's what the YouTubers get themselves from people watching their stuff. So sometimes get videos that perform better, but in general, that I guess is kind of the average for most people. There's also, topics that make more money, obviously. That's why some channels can survive off of less views, but usually those are news related or economy related and such. It's hard to work with good companies as an influencer. It just, in general, there's not a lot to pick from. Even if you do choose someone you like, some like a product that's good or whatever, I am not the type of person whose personality it is to sell shit, okay? So if I'm telling you about a product and it is an ad read, I want it to be seen as an ad read, okay? It's really strange that oftentimes, this is outside of this whole conversation with Shein, because that girl definitely went over, this is too far, but can't really blame someone for reading an ad in their video or something like that. For most things, there are some things that obviously I don't agree with. Ideally, I wouldn't have to do that. Ideally, there would be more businesses that I could work with, that I could have a relationship with, professional relationship with, that I could be proud of, right? We have a very different view of, for example, Selena Gomez doing a Pantene commercial to compare to an influencer reading a Pantene ad in their video. Oftentimes, we're either supposed to present it as if it's something that we have found for ourselves and we're just telling you as a good friend, or if we don't do that and we're kind of reading it more as an ad, there's still this assumption. Like, compare the way that people see ads running before they watch a movie, or when ads run in between a show that you were watching on cable at some point. I know we don't do that anymore, but still, no one ever went, oh, this actor is in this show that I like, and now he's reading this ad. How dare he read an ad? This is selling out, right? We kind of just assume that this is the way that they make their money. Somehow it did not transfer to influencers. I don't know why, especially considering how fake the fucking thing is. Like, how many people don't even have something to offer really in terms of talent or anything, and they're just kind of here because they steal others' ideas. Remember that guy who was like, I think Curtis Connor made a video about him with his friend. I'm not sure if it was Dean or if it was Jacob, it was one of them, but they made a video talking about this guy who was like giving advice as to how to make videos, like, or good videos or whatever. And that guy was like, also that guy was a complete dickhead. He was like basically making assault videos as like pranks. He was like talking about how you know that something is a good idea when you see a small channel get more views than they have subscribers and stuff like that. So you know, viral idea, then you make it yourself, or completely, you basically rip the creator off, and you get a lot of views, like millions of views. And that's how it literally works. You can notice that with any sphere of YouTube. You can compare like a smaller channel and a big channel. There's obviously some exchange going on that's normal. Like, for example, people are like tend to make longer videos now because they perform better on YouTube and stuff like that. But also there are things like someone literally making the same type of video that a small channel made, but maybe adding like a couple of tweaks on top of it so it looks just slightly different. This is very common. You're gonna notice it everywhere. These people usually don't have any problems reading ads either. They're usually the type of people who kind of accidentally got to where they are. You know, the first video they posted or the second video they posted blew up, and they kind of were in a good position to turn down deals because they could get a lot more other deals that would replace that, right? Like, I can't really judge someone who has like no subscribers and no other way of making money taking some kind of deal to compare to someone who's like a very big YouTuber who can pick anything and do anything, and they pick something stupid or something harmful. Especially, I personally am not the type of person who's like, we are supposed to choose the lesser evil of the two. There's not a single good thing you could do, whatever. It's true that we have to choose out of evils, basically, but I'm not the type of person who's like defeatist about it in terms of, oh, who cares, you know? A lot of girls on TikTok started doing this thing of like posting, for example, 1 million Shein products that they got for like $300 or whatever, when in reality they also can afford Diesel and they can afford Chanel and stuff like that, but they just choose to be wasteful because they can make money off of that, and they are kind of in a good position anyway. I don't know why they would be doing that. This is the problem that we're kind of having right now, is that there's a lot of garbage content and a lot of garbage people get to actually produce more content because they make more money, because they take all those deals that are shitty, and we're kind of in a perpetual cycle of it never fucking ending because choosing better doesn't pay, right? You know, it is what it is. Now, obviously, there's also a lot of other issues. For example, I am constantly applying for jobs because I do want like a regular job, but then at the same time, when I get like, for example, like I'm applying to a job and it is a marketing position at a gallery, for example, right? Like, it combines my expertise with my education. And just recently, one of the galleries that usually is quite good, or normal at least, you know, to a certain degree, just on Instagram, and I saw that apparently they had this whole like PR fiasco basically because someone on the staff said that residential schools did not exist, which is a crazy thing to say, especially when you're working in a gallery nowadays. Like, that's an absolutely crazy thing to say. But regardless of that, if I was the person who was hired to work in marketing for that gallery, it would be my job to fucking somehow create a diversion or somehow handle this PR disaster in a way that would work for the gallery, where I would probably be getting a lot of, you know, like, I wouldn't be able to do something that I think is morally correct, right? I wouldn't be able to do, like, I would offer it, but would the people who are above me actually agree to it? Very unlikely. That's what I've seen, you know, when I was working again in that jewelry startup. I can't actually act on my moral compass, and it's just so frustrating because it's not just in influencing. That's why it's also frustrating that even when I get jobs that are outside of it, you know, because I don't like shilling shit, you know, I'm not a fucking salesperson, and I mean, there's nothing wrong with selling things, but at the same time there is, because we're always selling bullshit, and it's just fucking frustrating. It is like, I know that this video is gonna piss off some companies. I know that this video is probably gonna piss off I don't know if it's gonna piss them off. I hope it's not going to, but I know that maybe my manager's not gonna allow it. I don't know what to tell you because I don't want to present myself to be someone I am not. The whole thing is frustrating, and I don't mean just influencing, I mean just the job market right now. I also found out recently that there's a lot of, like, since 2020 there's been a lot of incentives, at least in Canada, to post jobs and create more jobs. for like local businesses, right? And I found out through knowing some companies, knowing the structure of a company, and knowing that they do not have a design department, for example, because they don't need it, and they're not actually, they can't really hire anyone for that position. Seeing them post on the official government job bank that they are looking for someone to take up that position, when in reality that position does not exist. I would ask people who I actually know at that company, like, do you guys actually have that department now? And they're like, no, we don't need a designer. And when we do need it, we just kind of go to a design firm and we order something and then we're done with it, right? Recently, in the past few years, I realized that most jobs that are being even posted right now are all fake jobs, and all of us young people are wasting our time applying to those jobs when in reality they are just fake listings because they're trying to get stimulation check from the government, or they are trying to, another thing that I found out from like a hiring manager from one of the companies too, that they post stuff to just make people feel in that specific department that help is coming, that they're looking for someone to help them, so there is not going to be constant amount of work that's not really accounted for the amount of people that are working in that department. It turns out that they're not actually like looking for anybody. They just want to make it look like they are, so the people feel more reassured that they're not being used, that they just didn't find someone, they haven't found someone who works for that position yet. I also cannot be a burden on my family because first and foremost, like, we're immigrants. I am an immigrant. I am not a first gen or anything like that, right? And immigrating is a thing of it's a thing that basically requires you to sell everything you had and sell your entire soul, honestly, because when you move, if you're not from specific European countries or like Australia or other like Anglophone countries, your education is not going to count here at all. You're going to move here, and even if you, like, for example, my mom was an engineer and she also had a math degree. She had 2 degrees. They did not count when we moved here. Same with my brother. He was an engineer who had a 5-year degree, because bachelor's in Siberia, or anywhere in Russia, you have to study for 5 years. It does not count here. And that means that we have to start from zero. So now I already had cancer, right? Thank fuck I got treatment for free. But if I didn't have someone helping me out, I don't know what would have happened, because I wouldn't have money for rent and stuff like that. I feel really bad for kids who are like 24, kids, not kids, but you know what I mean, like young adults who get diagnosed with this shit, and then if they don't have parents who can help even just like a little bit, just with rents in some way, they just become homeless. I would just become homeless if I didn't have that help, honestly. I'm just really tired recently. That's it. That's the moral of the story, is that like I've been trying. I started working after finishing chemo, like maybe a month after, and I had to quit that job because my boss was creepy with me, and it's just hard to even know when you're applying for a real job and when you're not, because oftentimes they turn out to be like fake listings and you don't even fucking know it, and you spend so much time adjusting your resume or like writing a new cover letter for every single fucking job, because they require that much commitment from you before you even fucking talk to them. Some of them on Indeed make you do tests that take 15 to 20 minutes to do. No, I'm not fucking doing a test. If someone does that, I don't care. I'm not participating anymore, honestly. Even if I get really, really desperate, they can go fuck themselves. This video is so not fun, is it? Anyway, sorry for being like a downer, I guess. But I wanted to talk about, how influencing is just an example of another job that's also requiring you to, oftentimes to kind of step on your own moral compass and stuff like that. And in this case with this girl, I don't think that she's stepping on her own moral compass. She seems to be one of those people who are very content with the way that things are working in the world. She really wants to change things that specifically affect her. So she's very much like, her feminism is very much like Taylor Swift's feminism, where she only cares to change things that affect her specifically. Everything else doesn't matter. It seems like she's one of those people because she really, really cares about plus-sized influencers and confidence for plus-size people, but she doesn't care about anything fucking else, which is incredible. Thanks for listening. This ended up being a little bit of a rant at the end. Was supposed to be just a video essay about my notes that I've made here. Anyway, I hope you're having a good day, and I will come back soon with more stuff. If you're like a sane person, please like and comment, because I keep getting weirdos, like weird tech bro types in my comments since the AI video. They just keep on getting so offended that I said that AI art does not change anything because it's not really art. They really got pissy about it. So anyway, you guys, see you soon. Bye.
Bye.